All right, it's 6 o'clock, so we're gonna get the meeting started. First up, pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So calling the meeting to order on Monday, July 29th. We are being recorded by both the Norton Media Center. We are also Norton Public Schools. We are also on Zoom. So first things up, end of the year fiscal 24 budget update from Mrs. Hadfield.
Great. So what I did today was the we're familiar with this report is the general fund expenditures. It's the final year-end expenditure report. Along with a few transfers that we did, they were very small. They're between one small between a grant and the next was just the revolving. We ended this fiscal year with a balance of $281,955, and that was in our utility lines. And you can see in the last memo that I provided that is for tax that was agreed upon to pay for the trade project, the debt project. If you have any questions, I also have, I didn't get to in the packet that I brought with me, is revolving grant balances as well.
Yes. Any questions on FY 24?
Yes.
Since the train project, obviously, so we turned back $281, almost $282,000. That goes back to the town. Yeah. Do we know which savings from the train projects? I know it's probably a little soon. I know, but like there's supposed to be a huge energy cost savings, and kind of what's that looking like?
So all those were the savings in our lines. They weren't all from the project. A lot of it was from some of it we just started to see solar incentives. Those we were just receiving small amounts. Some came in a check that got turned back to the town, and then the other was on the bill in addition to other solar credits that we were getting for another project now. So we were seeing substantial, nothing guaranteed savings quite yet, but clearly even with our heating, a lot.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the heating, and I know most people really don't have this. We were budgeted for 521,000, and we only spent 343,000. So is that kind of safe to say that you're looking at, give or take, quick math, little, $180,000 worth of savings?
That's right.
Yeah, I also was finding.
Yes. And so all of the money that you see there, that 281,000, almost 282, those all came out of our utility line expenses that we over budgeted for and saw the savings. So it definitely, of course, would vary year to year based on actual heating and cooling needs, what the weather is, et cetera. But we were able to turn that up.
Just for, I think, public consumption, I think will be good. We were budgeted for $34.7 million. We spent $33.9 million. Left over is $281,955.01 was turned back to the town for FY 24. Questions? Comments? Here you go. FY 25.
Okay, so I shared with the committee a few items for tonight. Number one was the staff reduction sheet that was shared pretty publicly leading up to the override vote a few weeks ago in July. These were the 29 positions that were eliminated in order for us to meet the 1% budget allocation. Since that time, we have recalled 2 paraprofessionals based on student need and programming needs. So that brings that 29 number down to 27. For those in the audience, and at home, I'll read these again. The positions are the reduction of a guidance counselor at Norton High School, a nurse that was, call her the district nurse, but really was providing services to all 5 buildings, music teacher at Norton Middle School, the elimination of middle school world language at 2 teachers, an English teacher at Norton Middle School, a math teacher at Norton Middle School, a reading interventionist at the Yale School, 2 elementary math interventionists, the art teacher at Norton Middle School, 2 instructional technology specialists, the elementary math coach, the elementary literacy coach, preschool teacher, a science teacher at Norton High School, a social studies teacher at Norton High School, music teacher at one of 2 music teachers at Norton High School, a wellness teacher at Norton High School, a speech and language pathology assistant that was a 0.4 position, 2 custodians, the middle school dean, and JCS assistant principal position. Additionally, for elementary specialists, we reduced elementary art by 0.12, elementary STEAM by 0.32, elementary library by 0.4, and elementary music by 0.2. So those are all of the cuts that have been made. They were made previous to the override vote because of our contractual obligations, but we will not be recalling those staff positions. The next piece of information that I shared with all of you are the staffing changes that we've had since our May town meeting. And I think it's important for you to all know that since I shared this with you about 48 hours ago, we've had 2 other changes. So we are at a total of 4 retirements since our town meeting. A total of 8 resignations. 3 staff members that have decided to do a full-time equivalent change. So for example, we have a 5th grade teacher that is going to be job sharing, a science teacher at the high school that's going to be job sharing. So those positions are going from a 1.0 to a 0.4, and then we will backfill the other side of their position. And then I apologize, this is an error. We have 2 leaves of absences since the fall town meeting. That art teacher we already knew about and had budgeted for that. So I apologize, that was my error. And then the third thing that we have for you is the savings on all of these positions. So it's not quite totally up to date at this point, because as I said, we just got those, other 2 in the last, 2 days or so. But at this time, taking a look at staff members that have resigned or retired and then backfilling those roles as needed, we're looking at a savings of $176,862.
So based on changes since town meeting, basically focusing on retirements and resignations, how many of those spots do you have backfilled?
So we've been kind of backfilling them as they've happened. So on the 3rd sheet that you have for tonight, you can see the first staff member was the high school guidance counselor. The person that left was leaving at $80,928. We hired a new guidance counselor at $56,498, which is a savings of $24,430. And we've rehired the school psychologist at the middle school, the classroom teacher at JCS, the language-based classroom at JCS, a grade 1 position at JCS, an English teacher retirement at the middle school, an English teacher retirement at the high school. And then those last 2 are the job sharing. So as you can see, having somebody in a job share position, we're now only paying them at 0.4. There's still a savings because we're hiring somebody that is less experienced or brand new to the district at that time. So that's how we get up to that 176. We will be posting, or actually in one case, recalling a staff member that was laid off due to a retirement that has just come up over the weekend. So that would be somebody that we're able to recall. It's important for people to know it is not a new position. We are not bringing them back because we found money. We're bringing them back because someone else decided to leave. So 1-for-1, exactly. And then we will be looking at options for the resignation that took place at Norton School. And we're actually looking at the way that our staffing is going to present some options to the committee for potentially filling a hole in another school to make up the difference there.
Questions, comments?
What are our current?
Great question. Give me 1 quick second. So as of right now, we will have a. The amazing Mrs. Pam Anderson is extremely organized and she got this awesome spreadsheet for us where everything is color coded. We can see exactly who was coming and who was going and who we still have to work on here. All right. We are still looking. We're working on a, still looking at a 0.6 L teacher. We are still looking at, an inclusion teacher at JCS, a long-term sub position at JCS, a kindergarten teacher at JCS. And then we will be looking at a social studies position at Norton. That is one of the most recent changes. And this happens every summer. This is not strange or unusual. People have family commitments that change. People go on vacation and say, this is really awesome. I think I'm gonna retire. And it truly happens. And you know what, if you have the ability to do it, great, go for it. It truly does happen every single year. So this is how we are able to make changes every year. $176,000. It's not 3.7 million, but it will give us a little bit of flexibility if we need to make some changes, or if we have a student need that comes in and we're able, we need to hire a paraprofessional or something along those lines. So this number will change. Christine and I will continue to keep you updated on those savings as they come in. I only anticipate that number increasing over the next several weeks. And I really am hopeful that we will be able to say that we have all of our staffing in place for September 3rd when our students return.
Out of curiosity, is there like an average of like retirements and resignations over the summer? Like, yeah, usually it's like 20, or usually
it's really hard to predict. Some years are more than others. I think I fully anticipated seeing a lot of people moving this summer, only because we do have a number of staff members that are right at that point where they either have another year or another 2 years. And sometimes when you see a financial situation and the writing's on the wall, you say, you know what, now's a good time, for me. We do have some younger staff that have found positions in other communities. And I also think for them, going somewhere where you feel you're going to be a little bit more secure versus having layoffs kind of hanging over your head, it's a job security thing for people. And if you're just bought a new home or you're, just starting a family, that job security is extremely important. So it's not surprising. I don't think it's totally off the charts out of the ordinary at this point.
I feel like we had a list from last year, like this doesn't seem. I don't know, I feel like this would be a typical number.
Yeah, I
Versus,
would
like,
say right
you know
now,
what I mean, like,
I'd say it's
yeah.
pretty typical at this point.
Yeah.
This is, if I were to show you all of the changes, like this person moved to this role and this person moved to this role, and
right.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
Pam's got like 18 different colors
Yeah.
going on over here, and you got drop downs and spreadsheets, and I tried to make it as simple as I could.
Yeah.
For you guys, so you could really see what those changes are and what the changes are that impact savings. That we did not anticipate because they have all happened since the middle of
So out of curiosity, when we look at a staff member leaving, what's the time where it's like a resignation versus retirement? Do you have to qualify with so many years for
Yes.
retirement? What's that, is it 20?
It
Or is
depends, it depends on whether or not you were hired before or after, I think it's 2012. In order to be appropriately vested into the retirement system. The maximum retirement available to educators in Massachusetts is 80%. In order to reach 80%, your years of service and your age have to add up to 90.
So
So,
someone that starts like later in life, as
Yes.
a second career,
yes,
could still
they would
technically
need to
be
do at
retired.
least 20 years in order to be considered vested into the retirement system.
To
Um,
get the max. I mean, you can obviously retire.
You can, but in order to get retirement plus, you have to give 20 years of service. And in terms of resignation, most often those people are leaving us to go somewhere else or leaving the career as a
Any other comments, concerns? I have a few. All right, so. So we went from 29 positions to 27.
correct.
What positions, even with full $6.5 million override, weren't coming back? It's three, right? Or four.
It was the guidance counselor at Norton High School, the preschool teacher,
For best.
and I believe the speech and language assistant at the .4. Those were those three positions that regardless of what happened, we would not be calling those people back. And that's simply due to changing in programs, enrollment. We didn't have enough students that were required that best program preschool, so therefore we didn't necessarily need that person in that role. Or we didn't have, the speech and language pathology assistant. We have a certified SLP that's able to pick up that caseload. I mean, obviously, if you had the money and you could switch out that role for something else, that's always a great opportunity to be able to change some of our programming. But those three positions would not have been recalled regardless.
And then. Just trying to think prior to town meeting, not that we're back much, but on 328, we had a list that we that kind of had that if the 1% budget, 2% budget, if an override went through $4 million, and we kind of went basically from my understanding in Q4, having those things jump in, that we were kind of going to work the bottom to the top if we were to reinstate. So the 1% we were going to bring back these people, 2% we were going to bring back, E7, whatever. So we're going to be what's looking like probably getting $104 per person, sorry, per pupil, from the state. I know it's sitting on the government's desk right now. We don't have that number exactly, done. That's going to give us an extra $74 per student times that by 2,400. You're looking at
165, 168 ish.
No, two.
That's the total. So
Oh, gotcha.
we've already budgeted the $30 per student.
Yep.
That's already in the budget. So we would take the 74 instead of the 1. So I think it's 160, 160,802.
Earliest we could have that.
Yes. So So just to kind of explain that to folks at home, currently minimum aid is set at an additional $30 per student for the town of Norton. They are looking to increase that to $104 per student, which would be amazing. It would give us an extra, as Mr. Schleicher said, an extra $74 per student for us. One of the things that we need to all be aware of is that that money is not guaranteed to the schools. We will need to go back at town meeting and ask the town to vote to approve that $160,000 coming to us as a department. It goes to the general fund. And so that would be a big benefit for us if we're able to do that, but we would not have access to those funds until after fall.
So hypothetically, quick math, if we this list stays the same at 176,000, plus we get the additional per pupil. We have $337,000 potentially. Again, I get it, we're not gonna hire someone right now thinking we could potentially have them and don't have. But is that number, 337,000, something that we can look at shipping off some of these reductions? Like what's the, I guess, what's the plan for 300, what are we doing with $337,000? We're not gonna just leave it in our budget. That's not gonna.
Correct. I mean, $337 to you or I, if that shows up in our bank account, that's a lot of money, right? Like I would be psyched if that kind of money showed up in my account one day. $337,000 to a district with a $34 million budget is not that much. It really truly isn't. My number one priority is the school nurse, that sixth nurse. One of the things that we've had conversations about over and over and over again is the number of medically fragile students that we have in our schools. Across the district, we have students that have feeding tubes that a nurse is required to help them with their feeding 3 to 4 times a day. That is an extremely complicated process. The nurse needs to be able to devote all of their attention to that child at that time. And it's really difficult when you've got kids coming in and out. So that sixth nurse is someone who's able to really help with that. We also have a number of students in district that are diabetic. Each of the school nurses that has a child with diabetes in the building has an app that they are constantly monitoring the sugar levels of every single child. If the alarm goes off, they need to go and make sure that they're working with their child to help get their sugar levels back under control. Again, very serious, especially if it's your child that has this, medical condition, and we're asking our school nurses to keep them safe while they're here in our care. When you take a look at what the recommendations are for school nurses across the Commonwealth, any school that has more than 500 students is recommended to have a second nurse. So we would automatically, high school and middle school, we should have a second nurse. Obviously, that's not in the cards for us at this time, but those are some of the reasons why that nurse is my first priority. Additionally, and Mr. Cersei isn't here tonight, but that nurse person is sub coverage when one of our nurses falls out sick. They unfortunately do get sick as well. If they have a personal day, they are definitely working in a petri dish in an elementary school. And as much as we think our immune system improves over time, it doesn't always. They come in there that first line of defense when we need a sub coverage for that nurse. It's very difficult, as we've talked this year, to get substitute nurses regardless of what we're paying them. And then we could also consult with or contract with an outside provider or private provider. It's extremely expensive. And then the nurse also writes grants for us. They maintain grants. So that would be my first priority. And I believe that's about an $80,000 cost. So we said what, 337 minus 80, money goes fast. I'll be really honest. At this time, with only looking at $337,000 of potential savings, I would be extremely hesitant to bring back anyone for a few different reasons. Number one, I believe that we're going to have this exact same budget situation next year. And so we're bringing somebody back just to lay them off. Bringing back a staff member at town meeting time in late October, it's a difficult time to change school schedules, to change class sizes, to do any of those things. So you'd be really looking at what are the positions that wouldn't necessarily impact the schedule or class sizes, but would provide support to the building. The middle school dean is a great example of that. I know Mr. Haywood would probably, fire his own mother to get Mrs. Benoit back there. And that would have a big impact. I'm very hesitant to do any of those things because we don't know what the year is going to bring us. We don't know if we'll have students that have special education needs that will move into town or will be identified. And we joke about it because we can literally save $20,000 in the morning and spend $50,000 in the afternoon. It's extremely fluid the way a lot of our costs happen. So I would be very hesitant to say we're going to bring back all of these things if we get the $104 per student. One of the things we are looking at as we see these retirements and resignations. We just had a resignation at the high school this week. That person's role is not a classroom teacher, but more of a specialized role. And we're looking at, okay, how can the administration that we have currently perhaps backfill some of that work and therefore free up that savings for us to say, you know what, we have a brand new principal at JCS. It would really be great if we could find somebody who would just be an early childhood coordinator there and just support preschool. And could we do that by saving that role and not?
So you're meaning that admins will take on additional responsibility?
Correct.
Just check. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And I think we're all very well aware of the additional responsibilities we'll be taking on this year. Today was the first day of our administrative retreat. When I say retreat, I think it's really important for everyone to know we were in the library at high school. We were not on a tropical island or anywhere really fun and exciting. But all of our conversations today centered around student learning and how are we providing support and intervention access when we don't have interventionists, we don't have our coaches to help us look at data. There will be things that the administrative team is taking on this year in order to make good things happen for kids, but there are also things that are just not going to happen. And I think that it'll be my responsibility to communicate that to all of you and say, we just can't. We need to. Of course, it's not what we want. I hope
Well, I
the
think it's
committee-
important
yeah.
for you guys to do that because like anything else, it just gets absorbed and then it's expected.
Yes.
Because we heard a lot of stuff that we have we're so top heavy, right, with admins. So I think it's important to point out that you guys are taking on additional roles to try to keep our schools at a certain level that we've all come to expect. And like everything else, there comes burnout with that, and you take on more than really what you should be handling.
And so Nick, I don't want you to think that I'm not answering your question by spending the whole 337 right here. I'm very hesitant to do that. Just because we don't know what the year is going to bring
There's no absolute guarantee.
on any. And in fairness, the governor could approve the budget, and if it comes to town meeting floor, and it may still not may not get that $160,000. So until it's sitting in our account, I really don't want to.
So
You just don't know.
again, from the March 28th one that we went through, the wellness teacher at Norton High, that was on, that if we got 1%, that was going to be reinstated. Yeah, see it as a cut again. The math teacher at Norton Middle School, that was never on our list. And the JCS assistant principal of the childhood, I know she resigned in May. Assuming JCS principal was replaced with a Norton High School admin, we just kind of did a flop since it was
Yeah.
easy. But I guess why were those 2/3 different?
So it really came down to trying to be as creative as we can about what our options are. So when you have an administrator resign, it's very easy to say, okay, other people have contracts and potentially you'd be paying out someone over the rest of their contract for dismissing them. You don't want to necessarily do that. You don't want to pay someone and not get work. So when an administrator resigns, it's easy to say, okay, we're not going to backfill that. We're going to hang on to whatever that salary was and hang on to that. We were fortunate to have a very small cohort of fifth graders moving up to the middle school. And therefore, we looked at the model of instruction for Norton Middle School and said, okay, how can we get creative here? What is the certification of our teachers? How can we get creative here? And so now we're doing some cross teaming on grade 6 because the cohort is small enough that we can. So therefore, we have a special education teacher who is also certified to teach math, has been co-teaching math for many years. She will be teaching a section of math to 6th grade students. So we're trying to be really, really creative in terms of what could we allow. The wellness course at the high school has gone from a full year course down to a half year course. So instead of every freshman taking a full year wellness health class, they're only taking a half. And we are going to need to backfill some of those essential skills that they learned throughout the other half of that year throughout our curriculum at the middle school.
I guess then why, what, I just don't understand how on late March, wellness teacher was part of the 1%. Got 1% of the town. Budget process. And then we went and cut the wellness teacher. What did we replace that spot with? We're still at 29. Right? Still at 29 positions. Granted, now we've gone down, but we had 29 positions, but the wellness teacher was never on our list. That's what I don't understand of how.
The list that I have from 422 sheet, they were very much on that.
I think.
Okay, because I had 328. We had no wellness.
Mhm.
That was, she was, or not he or she, was a part of the one that if we got 1% from the town, that wasn't going to be a reduction.
And so, I mean, there were other things we swapped too. So I'm looking back at the 328, Nick, I have a 328, a 44, a 411, a 422. And they're all different iterations of the same thing. We were going to be cutting a business teacher
Correct.
instead of a wellness teacher. And so we looked at our programming, the classes that we offer, the number of students that are involved in our DECA program, which is, over 150 students that are involved in that program. And we said, we really don't have the capacity to cut a business teacher. But if we move this health class to a half-year section instead of a full-year section, we can make this other thing. And that's why I think, and I know that for those people who've been paying attention, they heard me say, I don't want to name positions. I don't want to tell, that these are going to be the people that get laid off. Number one, because it's not fair to my staff to find out that early and that publicly. But also things can change, and laying off 29 people, it's very difficult none of these positions feel good. Like, I don't really feel good about any of this, even those 2.4 positions that we wouldn't necessarily recall it.
And it's,
But finding that many people to cut and stay afloat.
and the other part of that is it's not just 29 people that are affected, because you have job bumping and things like that.
So it was almost 50 people
Yeah,
when all was said and
that's what I'm
done, in terms of positions being eliminated, then bumping other people, moving to new roles, moving buildings.
So I do have one question about the early childhood coordinator.
Mhm.
That role, take out the title of assistant principal and just early childhood coordinator. That's not necessarily an administrator in that role. That would just be kind of like program director, which could open up a different pool of applicants.
Potentially, yeah. So having the role of JCS assistant principal / early childhood coordinator, you were looking for someone who had an administrative license and administrative background that was able to not only run the program, but also support discipline, evaluation, a lot of different things. And it's a role that was extremely multifaceted and really needed the right person to be able to do that role, because it was so much. If we were to take the high school position, and that was recently a resignation, and say, okay, we want to use that money instead, we've got an admin that's going to help us backfill here. We would rather hire an early childhood coordinator. That would be more of a program director. That person would work probably, we're here for 182. They would probably work 192 or 202. They would not be a year-round position. It would be more of a 10-month position. And someone who has experience with young children, who has experience with a preschool program and the runnings of that. We might have a preschool teacher that says, I don't want to do this, and throw their hat into the ring for that. But that, we need to sit down and look at what the potential savings could be for that.
So that being said, that person's obviously in charge of the answers. For a month out. Who's running little answers for us?
Currently, Mrs. Russo is handling all of the little answers with help from Christine's office, dealing with all the finance and the tuition payments, with help from Alex Sanborn regarding transportation. And then, that's really it. Mr. Barrett is a brand new principal. He's not a brand new principal. He's brand new to us. And, started July 1 and is really coming in and getting settled, getting to know his staff. He has, an opportunity for staff to come in and meet with him, which has been really great. that position, if we sit down and, because this is still, it just happened. So we would post for it, we would go out and hopefully that person would start maybe a week before the school starts. But that would be something that we really have to look at the financial aspects, because the list that I gave you of savings does not include that.
Any other questions?
I think I just want to thank you for your optimism and your continued work, all of you, to keep our school district at a certain level, because I can tell you, for me, it's tough sitting in this seat today. It is tough. My 9th year, and this is where we're at. This is tough. Sure, I just want to thank you for all of your work.
I think my perspective, and I don't want to speak for my team, is that we do everything we can every day to make sure our kids are safe and they have a great learning experience. And it's going to be a challenging year, but we have really great staff. We have really great teachers. We've got great families who are super supportive. My job is to run the schools regardless of what the outcome is, and we're going to do the best of it.
It shows. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Not to skip, but should we go back, Mrs. Hatfield, about the memos? Do we have to vote on these or not? Or we just transfers? Sorry, I
There's
just
the
saw it.
transfers in the end year.
Yep, no vote.
So we're going to-
Yeah, not-
Back to Dr. O'Neill for updating the school instructor.
Great, thank you. So last fall, we talked a lot about a district alignment committee. What we were going to look at the school start and end times. We were going to look at the drawing of lines between JCS and LGN. We were going to look at the configuration of our schools. Number one, to see if we can make things a little bit more strategically aligned, especially for JCS and LGN, who have total opposite schedules. And as much as it doesn't seem like that would be a big deal, it really truly is a big deal for a number of different reasons. Number one is that we have specific programs for students at JCS and other specific programs for students at LGN. And if a family has one child that needs to be at JCS and one child that needs to be at LGN because of their program needs, those are very different schedules for families. And it also, families don't want to necessarily make those changes because they're established, they have the same time, their kids are on a routine. So that's something that we need to look at. The other thing is really around professional development and looking at student learning. One of the most powerful tools that we have as educators is the ability to work and collaborate with our peers and share best practices. I was a teacher at JCS for a number of years. I taught 2nd grade. We were never able to get together with 2nd grade teachers at LGN because they got out at 2 and we got out at 3:30. And very occasionally on a half day, we would get like an hour together just because of contractual time. And so we don't have the budget for expensive professional development, and the federal grant allocations are just going to, get more and more tricky as the years go on. So being able to use that collaboration time is really powerful. We were also looking at the districting and the alignment of schools in terms of grade levels. My recommendation for this group is to focus solely on the school start time issue at this time. And the reason for that is, believe it or not, Norton actually has a ton of building happening right now. I knew it was happening, and then I put this little blurb together for you guys the other night, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is even more than I thought. All of which these building projects have the potential to impact our schools. 195 Mansfield Ave, this is the new apartment complex called Norton Links. It's 100 units, scheduled to open this summer and fall. Of those 100 units, there are 10 3-bedrooms, 31 2-bedrooms. Those are families that are going to be moving in there. And that has the potential to impact enrollment at JCX. We have the Wheelock Farm development, which is right off of Pine Street. That is 44 single-family homes with a minimum of 4 bedrooms per home. Again, that would impact enrollment at LGN. We have 108 South Worcester Street, which will be 34 apartment units, which is a very, very beginning of approval, but that would impact JCS. we have the potential redevelopment of the Reed and Barton site, which is looking to be 140 units. That's on the JCS side of town. And then this fall, Norton will have information about the MBTA zoning project. As a community that is really near two major MBTA stations out of our own Mansfield, we are obligated to create a specific zoning area in our community that would have a minimum of 750 multifamily units on a minimum of 50 acres. So I'm very fortunate to have great relationships at the town. Nick Iafredi, who is our building inspector, and then our Paul Giuseppe, who just came back as our town planner. He was here previously and just came back. They've been really great about getting us information about the building that is happening around town. With all of this happening, I'm really hesitant to look at where those lines fall and where potentially we could reallocate grade levels within our schools, because I think we're just a little bit too early. And I think with all of this building that's going to be happening, we're going to have to be really careful in having a lot of conversations about what our enrollment looks like. With that said, I still think it's really important for us to do the school start times. So our committee is going to focus on that these next few months. It'll be Christine and I doing a lot of that work because all of it revolves around transportation. And so our hope is that we'll come to you by the beginning of October with a recommendation for school start times for September of 2020.
So
And our goal is to move JCS into Champions.
I have a small concern with not looking at the district realignment.
Mhm.
And I guess my concern is if the committee's meeting, it should be at least on the radar.
Mhm.
Because I mean, I get it, like, if these 100 apartments come in and it's all middle school students, doesn't affect. But if these 100 units come in and all of a sudden we have 70, whatever, 60, doesn't mean if you have twin boys or twin girls, they can share a room. It's two better.
Exactly.
So I mean, I think I don't want to just dismiss the redistricting because I mean the committee's going to be there. It could be like a subset on the meeting, but I think it just needs to be on the radar. It needs to be a contingency plan because we can't be reactive. All of this happens in the next couple of years. We can't wait for it to happen. Say, oh, well, we could have looked at it 2 years ago.
And the hard part is really no predicting. So using East Main Street as an example. So I don't know the number. I apologize. You're driving, you go over the bridge past the Duncan. Thank you. It's on the left before you get to Red Mill. We currently have 68 students district-wide enrolled from 274 East Main. I believe there's almost 200 units there. So 68, I'm like, okay, that's not that bad, right? But there's really no predicting how it's going to work. So I'm concerned about redrawing the line and kind of causing a little bit of turmoil and then needing to do it another year or two. If you know what I mean.
I'm just
What
thinking
we're happy to do.
like obviously, the big development on Pine Street, all those kids are going to do LG.
Mhm.
But and I don't know the districts. I'm going to throw Route 140 as just for my example. So the contingency is all the 140s in that first redistricting thought that those are going to go to JCS because you're going to have multiple age groups in on that development. Primarily, my guess is you're going to have younger children going to LG.
Right.
So I mean, it's just I just want it to be in the thought process. We don't necessarily have to write down our redistricting proposal, but we need to understand that if this builder is really good and really fast, and we can be looking at potentially these kids enrolling next school year, then we have to know what that redistricting plan looks like.
And
next summer.
we absolutely cannot put this off. Like it needs to be right there in the corner of our mind as we're working through all of this. My proposal to say, okay, we're only going to do school start times for September of 2025 doesn't mean we'll ignore all of this. But my thought is, I don't know that we would be ready because of the building to give you a recommendation by this October where that line should be. And it's really interesting when you think about it, because when you drive up 123, you've got Elm Street on the left and you've got Pine Street on the right. Most people don't know that that Elm Street is JCS and Pine Street's LGN. The same thing when you drive up North Washington Street. You have Johnson Street on the left and Arrowhead on the right. Johnson's JCS and Arrowhead is LGN. The way the lines go, it's very interesting. And I would also imagine it's a very hot button issue within our young families. If you're a JCS family, you are a JCS family. If you're an LGN family, you're an LGN family. And so it could be that we make certain determinations and say, okay, if you're a current family, we'll allow this to continue and phase out over those few years. If you're enrolling a new kindergartner, then these parameters are in place.
I think
That might
that's
make the
probably-
most sense. That's also logistically. I think as I just said that, Christine probably was just like, what? That would be, a challenge for transportation and everything.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Dan, because we have this committee, we
Mhm.
have large committee, if you will. We've already kind of broken down into subsections,
Yeah.
of the committee, that I don't know if just stopping the redistricting makes a whole ton of sense. I agree with you that 100 units and we have 40 kids in there, that all of a sudden now might flip that Johnson Street now becomes LG,
Yeah.
But I kind of like Dan's thinking, I think, is
Thanks, buddy.
like if we go with options of hey, this has 30 kids in it, and we know we're gonna have 30 families that are going to LGN. Okay, this road, these 2-3 roads, now we're going to go to JCS. We don't gotta necessarily make that public.
And
Because
it
it's a
doesn't mean
committee,
that,
it's
it
just a
also
recommendation,
doesn't mean
so
that
it's
committee
further.
has to stop their work.
Exactly,
The
that's my
committee,
big-
the committee can still look at these numbers, and now having this information may be helpful. And it may allow us to say, okay, we know this planning board meeting is coming up. We know they're gonna talk about, the Reed and Barton site, and maybe one of us from the admin team should be there to just hear what they're saying. I had asked both Nick and Paul, to make sure that they're continuing to involve us in these conversations, because these big projects have huge impact on the schools. And I think that, as a builder, or as someone on the town planning committee, you might not necessarily realize the impact that it has on the schools. It's like way down here, it's like in the weeds, but for us, it's right on top.
It's reversed.
So, I don't think we need to stop the work. I just know, I don't think we should have a recommendation for 25 yet.
Yeah, I think it's a good one of kind of looking at it in terms of what can we also do that when it's, I think to Dan's point. The 195 Mansfield Ave should already be kind of in our heads in terms of that's going.
Oh, it's
to bring in
coming out,
families,
yeah.
If we kind of take West Main Street, or sorry, East Main Street, if we're looking at it from, hey, we get 68 families from there, cut it in, you're looking at 34-ish, school age kids coming in. Now, again, Dan's point, if it's 21 elementary school kids and,
And I'm
Few
not super
more,
concerned
so,
about
yeah.
195 Mansfield Ave, because it's JCS and we have a little bit more space there.
So in theory, if they move in after the school year, they wouldn't even count numbers.
If they move in after October 1st, it doesn't.
So if they signed up for school now, they didn't take.
Correct.
Because they're potentially, it's
And I think,
all fluid.
yes, I would say that, once they're in, they have their residency confirmation, that's easy. And we also, we have very low kindergarten enrollment numbers this year compared to years past. I don't know if, we just have lower birth rates this year, or people were, looking at other options if the override didn't pass. Oh, I also know that the last 2 weeks of August, we have a huge influx of kindergarten registrations. People come home from vacation and think,
oh no.
oh, wait. I get it, listen, I have my own, and I know how crazy the summers can be. But. I know that's not very. Like,
Yeah, and
hard
that's,
data,
that
we'll
really
see.
sometimes is.
yeah,
All we can say, because I mean. This could be, 100 units, I mean, you don't.
yeah, and I mean, the studio units, the one bedrooms, even 2 bedrooms, those might be young professionals, they wanna be near the train, but they can't afford to live in the city. Until they rent them out, we just don't.
Do we have any way to like make friends with the leasing agent?
Sorry.
Hey, buddy,
I
guys,
guess,
they're gonna need to talk to us.
I know,
anyway,
right?
So
You
my
would
thought
think.
is if we can connect with the leasing agent and say, here's your direct contact for anybody that's coming in with kids.
Mhm.
And call us. So
but I think we don't want to get lost in translation here. That this committee also looking at school start times,
Yes,
kind of trying to get the teachers on at the elementary levels back on professional development side. Get the school, so I think there's more,
there's a lot of reasons for it.
there's a lot of work going on in the committee. I think that redistricting was a part of what we.
Mhm.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Good. All right, back to Mrs. Hatfield for capital.
So we wanted to give you a very preliminary, plan for capital for the fall. Okay? This is like the very preliminary, we just started, we thought we talked about it early. So that's why there's no quotes or anything attached, it's not our full package. So the very first thing that we are gonna do regardless, the second year, not regardless, but you know what I mean? Sorry.
Like it or
It-
not.
Yeah. Sorry, that came out fast. But is the second year of our tech displays that we got last fall. This will be year 2 of our lease, so that is $40,777.
I think we can, it's capital, they should be expecting it because they know it's a multi-year payment.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Worded much better, thank you. And then the next one we were looking at was water heaters at the high school. This is new this year. This past year, Wade could probably speak better on it, but we have 2 tanks at the high school. One of them started to leak, so we actually graded it, and we've been going off of one this year. They're the same age, so we feel that it's only a matter of time for the second one goes. So we got quotes for that for $132,000. And then the next that we were thinking about was a new, it says athletic, but it's another multi-purpose vehicle. It's very similar to the used red bus that you see that we got 2 years ago. So the 75,000, that's from the state contract, it's a little higher. That would be a brand new. We're not necessarily looking at that. That was kind of an older quote, but we could get another used one again for much less. The idea behind this, after talking with Aaron and seeing how much the middle school, high school, and even actually the elementaries use this, the red bus, it is significant savings. We use it not just for athletics, we use it for clubs, activities, we use it, Special Olympics, field trips, we used it for the tour around Norton. We used, I think at one point, it was back in May, Aaron and I were talking, and we used it for 20 trips in May alone. Like softball, baseball, field trips, DECA, I mean, it was all over. So we just think it would be a savings for us long-term transportation, and slowly increasing, especially some of the athletics, a little unknown, going to playoffs and things like that. So we think long-term would actually really help us and would cut down on our transportation.
How many kids fit on that bus?
20.
20?
Was there anything size-wise that's like between that? Bus with a special license?
It's as big as you can go.
That's under
Without
regular.
Yeah.
So it's just a regular person with a license can drive this bus?
Yeah, as long as it's not around like 100.
Okay.
Mrs. Murphy, our computer science teacher, in high school, she drives it all the time. She takes kids to like
Doesn't
STEM events, like, it's hysterical. She's like- So those are the items for capital. I know there are times when we have to present the capital committee with items in August, just because of their timeline. So we felt it was really important for you guys to see our initial thoughts here. on these items before we are kind of up against a timetable from that board.
So essentially, the tech display should already be there.
Correct.
And then, so we have one current request to.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think my concern with water heater is. We gotta push for that.
Great.
Do you know the life? When's the last time you were replaced?
That was done during the project, the renovation project, so they were installed June 2012.
Sorry. It's not bad.
That's what I thought, but I think, I mean,
Is what it is.
our parents could buy a fridge and it would last for 25 years. I don't think they make things quite the way they used to.
I've been through 4 water heaters in like a year.
Okay, well,
Mine's
that's,
an
that's,
exception.
that's, yeah.
Elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Again, I will say what I said last year during capital, and honestly, we didn't really move on it, but I would love to kind of see the five of us get a little bit more involved in terms of like color coding these things. Like, again, we didn't have water heaters on our capital things next year. It's naturally going to come up as things need to be replaced.
Mhm.
I would like to kind of get some of those wants kind of be starting to be highlighted, based on each fiscal year, just kind of get out of there. Well, 2 cents kind of involved a little bit more, so I don't know, I think at some point we'll probably bring it up on an agenda item, but.
I mean, the sad reality of that, Nick, some of these have been here in my 10 years.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
That's- yeah.
Right,
It's
and
ju-
just
it's-
based on money,
No,
year
it's
to year,
Literally
not being there,
a smaller pie.
right,
than
exactly.
dummy. It's just, and the problem I've always had, and I'll say this publicly. When I was on the capital committee, I don't believe that things on a lease should be paid for with capital funds. It's been there every year, whether it's a piece of equipment, whatever it is. That is not what capital should be used for. That should be a budgetary item. But the problem is, you have these departments with their big equipment, 5-year lease, and it's $45,000 a year. That makes that pie that much less for everything else.
And, I think too, to your point, Nick, like some of these things, like the things we want to do, like classroom furniture, the auditorium at the middle school, those have been there for a long time. Replacing the indoor carpet, even the paving the second entrance at the middle school. We had other things that were slated to go into this fall 25, but we can read the room, A, and B, all of a sudden when the water tank goes and that we're gonna need it simply for the cafeteria at the high school, like, and exactly, yeah, the elevator last year was the thing that had to be fixed. So those unfortunately push the things that would be nice to replace and.
Right. And that's, I guess, my
Yeah.
concern. is I feel
Yeah.
like we're always just trying to replace needs rather than trying to get something checked off at once. And again, I get it, we're in a little bit of a fiscal time, that's a little different, but
Well,
we've been on this for 10 years and we've had some.
The
you know,
needs
you know.
become the necessities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Eventually it will.
water heater is basic maintenance that should have been done. As part of.
That's all, that's. Any other thing on capital?
So just a quick question with the water heaters, can that not be part of, like the whole train project? There's no, okay. Taking a track. I
The other,
figured you have already thought of that,
Right.
I know, I just wasn't sure.
the other thing that we thought of too is because it's in the cafeteria and it's primarily utilized by the cafeteria, we're like, oh, can we use our cafeteria revolving account? And the 3 of us talked about it and it's not an allowed.
Yeah.
So it's like, of course, right? So well, we're shaking out those color questions, Jerry, don't worry.
Number 5, back to Mrs. Hatfield for surplus material.
This number you will be looking. So we have collected, about 90 phones from all 5 schools when we got the new implements last year. They're all different kinds, as you saw with the picture.
I like the picture. Bring that old school.
What's going on?
So because there's so many and, we have obviously wanted to do like surplus, we want, to the town for auction. So we would just need a school committee vote for us to do so.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Okay.
Some of these are old.
Some will be fine. Looks like zone six. All right, next is update on Vision 2026.
Right. All right, so, this is, a fairly comprehensive overview for all of you regarding, our Vision 2026, which was our strategic plan that was put into place in the fall of 2023, and Dr. Bayetta's last year. So, what I did tonight was I shared with you our progress updates as of summer 2020. And these updates come not just from me, but from Dr. Ackerman and Hatfield and Spencer and our whole team in terms of, what we're each responsible for. So as you can see, it's actually really nice to sit down and do this work. You felt like all you did all year long was budget, and then you saw it and you're like, oh, actually we did a lot of great stuff this year. So we've made a lot of progress in terms of goal one, developing the whole child. We have, active PBIS expectation language in all of our schools. We are part of the Leslie Trauma Institute since spring of 2019. Had over 160 staff members participate in at least one course during that time. We also were awarded a 2-year mental health grant from the Department of Education, which is about $250,000 over that time, which allowed us to research, pilot, and select our SEL curriculum for students in grades K-12, as well as our mental health screener for students at risk. And then, oh, there we go. We also are implementing the JED High School at Norton High School, which takes a look at social and mental health support for students and families. And then also our students at the high school implemented the MyPath, which is the career and academic planning this year during LLB. It helped them to really identify what some of their goals are for life after Norton High School, as well as career options. Additionally, we have so one of the things that we've always done in the past is we've partnered with Panorama to give students an SEL survey. And as part of my entry plan this year, I met with a lot of kids. And one of the things they said to me was like, I just press buttons and click on things because I always want to be done. And I'm like, all right, well, so one of the things, I'm like, oh, thank you for being honest with me. I appreciate that. Yeah. That we had to fill in the bubble.
I was gonna say,
yeah.
you're right.
So I changed that approach this year, and I gave students a 3-question survey, basically, like, as I shared with all of you as part of my entry plan. Do you feel accepted or welcome for who you are? Do you feel safe in school? Do you have an adult that you can go to? And that was actually really nice to see some of those surveys and sharing those with staff. Additionally, we have always done a similar survey for staff, and I changed that this year to more closely align with my own entry plan and what I do. We have, in terms of preparing students in terms of academics, we have offered summer achievement camps for a number of years. This year, Dr. Ackerman ran 2 math achievement camps during February and April. We had a large number of students participate, which was really great. It was a 4-day. Imagine spending February vacation or April vacation, 4 days in school, learning math. The kids were here, there were teachers here. Really overall, great opportunity and experience for our kids, and great example of how when you're able to work with students in a small group on one-on-one, they can really make some incredible gains in a short period of time. So that was really wonderful. We have spent a good amount of time over these last few years. I know probably all of my staff thinks about it in their sleep because we talk about it so much, is IMTSS, and really looking at a multi-tiered system of supports for students when it comes to both academics and social, emotional, behavioral wellness. As I mentioned earlier, we had our first day of our admin retreat today, where we are looking at what we're doing well, the processes and the structures that are in place, and what is our next step as a team for this upcoming school year in order to help with capacity for staff. And all of that is going to be structured around database decision-making, making sure that teachers have access to student data that is relevant, that will give them a good idea of where students are thriving and where they need support, and how we can plan interventions to really target those particular needs. I don't want to read all of this to you because you guys are all able to read. A few other highlights that I want to share with you is that Norton High School just finished year 2 of our partnership with PBL Works, where we had about 35 staff members participate in a year-long training on project-based learning. And we had about 75% of our Norton High School students participate at least one unit last year that was all project-based. And that's something that we really feel strongly about, because it helps students engage in real-world problem solving that really connects closely to the content that they're learning in the classroom. It makes it relevant and practical, and giving them a little bit of a taste of what the real world is like outside of our classroom and our hallways and away from worksheets. So we're really happy about that work there. As I mentioned, staff surveys. One of the other things that we received a grant for this year was around chronic absenteeism. You may have heard that post-COVID, the absence rates in schools has just absolutely skyrocketed. We had about close to 20% of our students that were considered chronically absent this past year. Sorry, not this past year, the year previous. So Dr. Ackerman and we have a really great committee that's working together to help us put structures into place to support students and families in getting their children to school, and also really reaching out to the community. So you'll start to see things around the community about why attendance matters. Like at Honeydew, we'll assign attendance matters, please bring your child to school. So tomorrow, during day 2 of our admin retreat, Dr. Ackerman and Mr. Cersei and some of our teachers are coming in to present to the team on the work that we did. So part of our work this fall is going to be taking a look at my entry plan from last year, the work that we've done around IMTSS, and factors that really, research-based factors for school improvement. And we're going to be starting that work as an admin team during the summer, and then putting a group together to start working on our new district strategic plan. We will likely not ride all of this one out all the way to 2026. I think a lot of it, it's time for us to pivot on certain things. A lot of this work here came back in version 2. Post-COVID, we had our vision that 23, 20, I've had so many visions, I'm so tired. So many visions. So we really feel like we've done a lot of really great work here, but it's really important for us to figure out what are the next steps. We've had a lot of conversations this year about high academic expectations for all students, making sure that we're providing students with appropriate interventions and working closely with families. So we will likely retire this Vision 2026 this fall and present to you our new strategic plan. Probably in June. Happy to take any questions or concerns on that.
Concerns, comments? Good to go. Thank you. Number 7, other business, not within 48 hours.
That's just enough.
That's all I've done.
Yeah.
I got 2 quick things. Obviously, with everything going on within, override or whatever, I did see a few things popping up. Norton with the NEAT program, just as far as, what they do and all the great work that they do, supporting our schools. And then also I saw today or yesterday on Norton Neighbors, there's a new thing going out about a teacher wish list, kind of add it on to Amazon, kind of go, you can actually go and help, as far as donations to help the teachers in their classroom. 2 kind of great pieces that should be highlighted in what we do in the community. So those up. Anything else? I will open this up to, I was gonna say, I will open this up to the public. Obviously, this is my first time doing public hearing, if you will. Listen, I don't have 2 minutes and 3-minute rules. You're here to talk to us. We're here to show reps. I asked you to try to keep it to 3 minutes. If you're going over, we'll just kind of give you the 30-second warning or whatnot. We're here for you. So I don't think we need stipulations on a bunch of adults in a room, to be quite frank. We obviously actually be respectful and we will go from there. Go ahead.
Hi there, I'm Calista Thomason. I live over on Keith Drive. I know, Nick, you spoke with the Sun Chronicle and the article came out last night where you were talking about looking at alternative funding sources to help support the school. I know you just mentioned 2 items. Are those the alternative fundings, or are there other things that we should be aware of? Just really a question.
Yeah, I mean, I think like those 2 are a good example, I think. I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is you can always donate to the schools. I know we have, quite a few yes voters who are, looking to, obviously we're willing to increase their taxes and whatnot, that if you're willing and able and you can, do it. We'd love to, we can totally accept, donations of any kind. So you can also kind of earmark it. You can kind of earmark it for whatever, programming, area you kind of like to take. So.
I would just say something about need. I've been on need
Yes,
for
yeah,
years
go
and
for it.
do a lot of fundraising. We have a movie night coming up, but we historically, to Jen's point, I mean, we give $15,000 to $20,000 a year in grants.
Mhm.
That's sort of our scope. So I would hate for people to think that we can cover $100,000 shortfalls in budget. Appreciate any and all donations. Come to our movie night in fall. It's looking like it's going to be Wonka. Just a spoiler. But I just want to be really clear about that, because I think need gets pointed to a lot as like the savior of the school budget. And we do what we can, but it's not, it can't fill budget, and we can't fund recurring expenses. That's a part of the charter. So just want to make sure that that's out there too.
We appreciate all of needs support very, very much. We've been very fortunate to have you all as a partner for a number of years, so thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna Dolak. I live at 104 Newcomb Street. I just wanted to follow up. Dr. O'Neill, you mentioned, that your priority is to hire back the school nurse position if we do get that money in the fall. I just had a question. Is that something that everyone on the school committee would be in agreement with and in support of? For that position to be reinstated?
I think our student safety is of utmost importance, so being in healthcare, or I was in healthcare, absolutely.
Okay,
I think on that list, it's most logical,
right.
and I don't say this to try and sound minimalistic, but we have really good staff in our schools. And I would hope that, unfortunately, the staff that has been let go for these cuts hopefully find another avenue, another next opportunity for them. So they might not be available come November 1st, and we might find out we don't have a nurse available. But based on the needs of our students, it's easier for us to add like a nursing, district manager versus a classroom teacher or an interventionist, because at that point we're in school 2 months, 3 months, we can't go disrupting the everyday academics.
Right.
So that would be the challenge, to hire any of the classroom facing positions versus, as we know, with diabetics, with feeding tubes, you have a direct correlation with student safety, because those students need a lot of one-on-one attention, but the other student could be in the office with a concussion they got in gym or something like that. So that's the biggest priority. Yeah, that was, so I would definitely agree that would be.
I mean, the reason I bring that up is that's what my number one priority too, I think, as far as what needs to be added back. And so I just wanted to
Yeah,
follow up on that.
and I want to be clear, I'm not putting the district nurse on any of the other 27 positions, but we have to look at things from a top-down review, and that is the biggest need of the students, because it's a direct correlation to see of our 2,400 students. Not, again, not trying to minimize it, but if I'm hiring back a teacher that's only going to serve 7 students or something like that, or a dozen students, I really need that position to go further in the district. So I'm not looking at that position next year if we're in this position.
Thank you.
Dan Grady, 15 Peter Street. I just want to circle back to some things that Dr. O'Neill had brought up earlier. So no interventionists and no coaches to debrief the student data. You said that admins are taking on additional roles to help with those, not to mention all the other cuts. So just building off of what we said though, like this idea that we can donate our way out of this, or that we can find, grants and things like that. Dr. O'Neill said she has a concern that we could be right back here next year. So the kind of the broader question I have is, we're not in a good place financially. If we do end up back here, is the committee ready and willing to cut programs further next year? If we do in fact end up here again, since we can't again donate our way out of this, or just find grant money that's inconsistent.
I mean, I think this, as we've heard tonight, everything is very fluid. Are we ready and willing? I'm never ready or willing to cut stuff. It's the nature of how the budget process works. Like every other department in this town, we get a number, we have to stick to. That's the bottom line. We can't go over that number. We can get creative, we can shuffle staff, do some things like that. The creativity is running out as well. Just like the finances are running out as well. I would say we're going to have another very tough budget year, in my personal opinion. I'm not reading cards, or just it's my opinion based on my 10 years of experience doing this. Will it be as bad as last year? I hope not. But I think it's going to be bad again. We've talked about this for a number of years. We've talked about this financial cliff. We've talked about all of this many times over. We're already over the cliff. It's just a matter of how far we fall next.
Can I ask a follow-up? Is that appropriate or inappropriate?
I was just going to finish my next statement. When it comes to grants, we can't predict those either. There's an election in November. That can change a lot of things when it comes to education as well. We can't predict that. We can't predict what the election looks like. Everything's going to still be very fluid come our budget season. We've been lucky that we have very good people to work with us on our budget as far as internally within the school department. If there's a grant out there they can try and get, they will go for it, as they've done for a number of years. Donations are helpful. We're not going to get $3.4 million in donations. So, I mean, it always comes down to, here's your number, get under your number.
I mean, I think to kind of follow up, we gotta be creative, that is easy to say, to actually do is going to require change, Where does that change come from? This is our first meeting since the override, kind of went through here and that, what are we looking to do? How are we going to be that if we are in a similar spot, 10 months, whatever it may be, what are we leading up to doing, over the next 10 months, trying to make those impacts, if they do happen, as minimal as possible. I mean, I think, from my standpoint is, I think this whole thing has to start with some type of townwide. I believe in order to get the town and the town's taxpayers on the same page, is do a full extensive audit to figure out where is Norton doing really well. This is not just a Norton Public School issue. This override was for, multiple departments, obviously the school had a major stake in that game, if you will. But I think starting with an audit, you can get buy-in from the taxpayers. If you say, hey, this is what we're doing really well, here are a lot of our shortfalls, here we can make up some ground this way, whatever it may be. I think that's the starting point, because quite frankly, at the end of the day, we're on a committee where 5 people, you got the select board and the FinCom and everyone volunteers. We're going off of what our town manager, our superintendents, our fire and police chiefs are kind of telling us, and then we're trying to, play all these hands and see all these cards and try to make, what's best for our community. So I think at the end of the day, is if we can kind of get legit, hey, this is what's really going on. This is what we really need to work on. That to me is the first step. Quite frankly, and I'm gonna not speak as Nick Schleicher, school committee chair. I think this town does need an override probably at some point in order to offset it. Problem is, in order to do it, you need to have the buy-in. And I think what's happened is over the years, you haven't had the buy-in because people don't quite frankly trust, it, whether that's right, wrong, or different, we can argue about that, 20 different ways. But again, I do believe at some point, you need to get the taxpayers to either trust the schools, trust the town manager, trust the select board, trust the FinCom. That lack of trust over the years, not to mention with all the, COVID stuff that went on, I think we're in a very awkward place, not to mention, the economy in general, and the inflation rates and all that. The timing wasn't great. But I think in that regard, if we start somewhere, can't see a lot of people not saying, no, don't do a townwide audit, that doesn't make any sense. I feel like that's the place to start. That's where you can get kind of everyone being like, all right, where are we? What are we doing? And then from there, it's going to give us, as a, administrative staff and school committee, and also the other departments of town and boards, a starting point of, okay, where can we improve? Where can we get moving? I think it has to be townwide. I think it has to come, in conjunction with the superintendent and obviously the town manager. I think it needs to be an independent audit. I think we need to start there. Once we get that done, I would love to have that done by like January 1. And then kind of get moving. Yeah, we got to figure out, a plan. So.
If I could just add one thing as well, I think, number one, I appreciate the support. I appreciate people being here tonight to support and advocate for the schools. 2 days after the override vote, I had our annual Massachusetts Superintendent Conference, and I had a number of colleagues come to me and say, hey, I'm really sorry we're here to hear about the override. We're going to be going for one next year. This is not just a Norton. There's a serious disconnect between the way that we fund education in our state and in our country. So it's really important, as both Dan and Nick have said tonight, for us to do the work that we need to do here as a community, because the voters spoke. We did not have the support. It was overwhelmingly against an override. And that's the thought of the community. So we clearly need work to do here, but as your elected board and as superintendent, we also need to do work with our elected officials, with the Mass Association of School Superintendents and Mass Association of School Committees. We need to better advocate for appropriate funding at the state level. So that's a huge factor.
And I think we've tried that in years past, and we've had people come in and it goes in circles. And so I think that, and that we've talked about this for a long time, like, how do we make that change? And since you asked the question, I want to be able to answer for myself. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't sit in the seat and feel comfortable at all with where I'm ending my career on the school committee with where we're at right now. I don't feel comfortable at all with it. I don't ever like to make these decisions. It's heartbreaking to me because I've always sat in the seat and tried to put our children first. But with that said, and I've known Nick for a long time, and I've always said this, and I've said it publicly. I can very much agree to disagree with somebody and still respect them and still be friends with them at the end of the day. And that's kind of where we're at in this community. I mean, it got bad. It got bad. And our neighbors forgot how to be neighborly. And it was sad. It was sad to watch. I mean, we've done this many a times before. I will always support this community. I think that just because Dan and I have been here the longest, work has been done in the past. There's a lot of newer people that haven't necessarily seen it or paid attention in years past. I know that there is an audit done on the town side. I don't know if it's every year or every 2 years. It's every 2 years. I understand it's not independent.
Yeah, we also get audited.
Right. So it is done. I understand it's not independent, but we also need to be able to come up with the money to be able to do that, right? To be able to, my question is if we do that, and, we did have elected officials this year who were not in support of the override, like, at some point, because we have worked together in the past, I've had meetings in my own home with a subcommittee where I invited people in that we were supposedly working together for the greater good of the town. But in order to do that, people have to be honest, right? And you can't sit in a committee and say that you're working together and everyone's pulling in the same direction, and then you're telling your friends and family, I don't support that. I wouldn't do that. We can't do that. At some point, we all have to be grown-ups and be honest with where we're at, right? And so, and I just speak from experience of doing this myself. So it just becomes tiring after a while when, you know, people come at you and say, well, you haven't done this, this, and this, and in reality, we have done that. But listen, if there's newer people who come on and think these are options, then we need to find the money to do an audit and go from there, and hopefully that has people trusting the people that they voted for in all of collective these seats, the select board, the school committee, and the finance committee is appointed. But you know, I wish the best for this town, honestly, as I finish my term. I really do. I really do wish that we can stay off of social media and just be kind. For the love of God, just be kind. It's so infuriating to watch the way that people are talked about, people that have sat in these seats for years to do our best, and people attack us for it. I just hope to God that going forward, this community realizes who it wants to be when they grow up, and just be kind and go through the thorough process, hopefully get more trust. I don't know that that'll ever happen with some people, but all we can do is our best. So I hope that answers somewhat of your question.
Did you have another question?
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else? There you go. Great. Motion to adjourn and enter into executive session for the purpose of discussions on school and internet safety, not turn to open session. Roll call.
Roll call, yes.
So I will start at the, and go over there. I'll give Michelle a. Your first one. Sherry?
Yes.
Justin?
Yeah.
Ben?
Yes.
And Nick, yes. Thank you all.